Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 49 of Radio Free Filler. For this show, we're continuing with the second installment of the musical play The Changes Over 20 Years. We'll warm up with an encore of Kristen Bell Pepper's performance as Jenny singing An Imaginary House.
I look out my window at my tiny little town, and all that I can see is the people looking at me. A pretty little girl in an imaginary house I stay in all day long, and they say there's something wrong. The women folks say I'm conceited or dim to spend every day in the house all alone. Each passing man says I should take up with him, for a pretty little girl is something he'd like to own. The people don't like a pretty little girl. They say that I'm lazy or secretly crazy. But they also say that the easiest thing to be in all the world is a pretty little girl. I hear them speaking as they pass, throwing their stones from their houses of glass. My imaginary house makes it easy to see, but it doesn't shelter me. A pretty little girl in an imaginary house, I hear them come and go. And there's one thing I know: when you live in an imaginary house, the stones that get thrown can pierce you to the bone. It was easier before Mother died and Father was still around every day. Even though we were always struggling, at least we had each other for company. Now here comes the constable to look in on me. She always treats me well, but it's like I'm just another fence to be painted or some chickens to be fed. I'm just part of her job. But look, there's young Stephen tagging along. Of all the boys in town, he's the only one who seems to be as helpless as me. Good afternoon, Officer Petty.
Good afternoon, Jenny. As you can see, I've allowed this young man to tag along. He desires a visit with you, and I have a few minutes to spare.
I think that Father would approve. Please come in.
Very well. I'll just stand in the corner to keep a watchful eye. All right, young man, you may speak to the young lady.
Hello, Jenny.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello.
Come on, get on with it, man. This is your big chance with this girl. This is the girl of your dreams. This is the girl you want to marry. This is a major plot point. Don't worry about the sheriff. She can't hear me, and neither can the girl. You're the only one in the scene who knows you're in a play. Now skip all the bashful stuff and get to the point.
Yes, Stephen?
I spoke with your father earlier today.
Just a minute. Can you verify that?
He gave me his business card.
Well, that seems to be satisfactory. You may proceed.
He told me something wonderful.
Father is a wonderful man. I saw the two of you talking, but I couldn't quite make out the words. What did he say?
He told me that he approved of the idea of my marrying you once I had made my fortune and settled down.
Seems safe enough. That will take 20 years at least.
Making a fortune and settling down. That is Father's fondest hope now that Mother is gone. How will you manage it?
I've joined the local theater group, and I am going to write and star in a successful musical play. I will be the hero, and you can be the ingenue.
I beg your pardon.
You can be the leading lady. After our great success, we can retire and settle down and be married.
Make that 40 years, if ever. That father's no fool.
Let me think about this. After the play succeeds, it will be a success, won't it?
I've never heard of a successful musical play that wasn't.
That means we'll be famous. That means we'll have money. That means that we can help Father so he can retire and not have to travel all the time. That means we could afford to build a real-life house that we could all live in.
You'd better build 2 real-life houses. I think your father might want one of his own.
We could afford to build 2 real houses. Only we would build them far away where nobody would bother us, and we could be left alone.
Yes, all the most famous people want to be left alone.
I think that this is a wonderful idea.
Youthful thinking is a thing all its own. Come along, young man. Your time is up. You've had all the time you needed, and I've heard all the nonsense I can stand.
Goodbye for now, Stephen. I'll be waiting to hear from you.
I'll look in on you again tomorrow, Jenny. I'll deliver any messages from Stephen myself. Stephen, I will permit you to communicate with Jenny, but only through me. Is that understood?
Yes, Officer Petty, and thank you.
Imagine, just this morning I was a pretty little girl without a hope in the world, watching poor Father growing more and more weary. Now Father will finally get some rest, and I will become so rich and famous that I can go away and everyone will leave me alone. They say that there's a world outside with dangers ranging far and wide, and places I should never try to go, and things that I should never come to know. They say that I should never come to feel those things they say are far too real, but time will find me far beyond my door, when clouds go dark and skies begin to pour. There would be time for the rain, the surreal that you feel. If it should rain, let it rain. I can face the rain. And if it does, I hope it does. If it does, I hope it does. And I resolve, I hope But if the sun should choose to shine, and if the air is fresh and fine, it could be so, for one can never tell. But I'll find a way to manage that as well.
Act 1, Scene 4. Well, here we are, back in the center of town, killing some time while the actors who exited stage left can hurry along behind the rear of the stage so they can come out again from stage right. Oh, here they come now.
Stephen, I want to talk to you seriously about this plan of yours.
Why, sure, Officer Petty. What is it?
I've got a few questions. First, there's this play of yours. It's not going to stir up any trouble, is it?
Why, no, I don't think so. What do you mean?
It's not going to be one of those loud, bawdy affairs like I hear they sometimes have in the city, is it?
Well, to tell you the truth, officer, I haven't even written it yet. I've never written a play in my whole life.
Well, I'm not surprised. Whatever gave you the notion that you would just pop up and put on a successful play out of thin air?
Well, I hear my cousin James has written a couple of plays, and he seems to be doing all right.
I know about your cousin James. It's true that he wrote 2 plays. One of them even got performed last summer at a fair in the next county. I saw it.
So you can see why I've got a chance.
It was a little one-act story. Nothing wrong with it, but it didn't make him any money either. James is a pretty fair writer, but I know that he makes his living as a bank clerk in the city. Maybe you should talk to him before you get too far along in this airy undertaking of yours.
I was going to ask him for some help with the speeches.
You do that. Now, my next question. How are you going to raise the money for your big production? I don't want you running up a lot of bills you can't pay, and I don't want you annoying the neighbors by begging door to door.
I promise I won't bother the neighbors, and I'll pay cash for everything. I'll make sure I've got the money. I'll get a backer.
Well, that seems safe enough. I'll carry your messages to Jenny like I promised. But there's one more thing.
Anything you say, Officer Petty. What is it?
I'm going to tell you a little story that started right around the time you were born. It seems that there was this farmer, an upright fellow from Puritan stock. Not rich, mind you, but his little farm was doing all right, and he grew enough extra to sell. He had a daughter who got curious about the city, and one evening she got away and took a buggy ride. She went to see a show and took up with one of the actors. He must have seemed mighty grand to her, from overseas, English accent and all. They snuck off together a few times, and then her father took sick and died. Her poor mother was already gone, so that left the girl all alone with the farm. Then she got the bright idea that she'd turn part of the business into a store, and she married the English fellow to help her keep it running. She figured she'd make a working man out of him. I guess he figured he'd be able to come into some property. So they got hitched. That was about 20 years ago.
So how did it all turn out?
You don't realize it yet, but you've already seen the place. It's the Little Inn.
Mr. and Mrs. Little?
Ruth and Harry, yes.
But what happened to the farm?
Well, it started off as the Little General Store, and it did all right at first. Then Harry got restless and started sneaking back into town at night. Couldn't get the stage out of his blood, he said. Got some drinking in there too, of course. Then some of Harry's old creditors got wind of his new property, and they came after it. I went along when my father, the sheriff, served him the papers. So most of the farm got sold, and the little farm store turned into the little general store, and finally into the little inn. Harry tried a few schemes, like trying to set up a little theater in the back room, but he never finished it. He's no carpenter, not even a handyman, but he thinks he can do anything because he's play-acted the part on stage.
Didn't he start our local theater group?
Oh, he started it all right. He's always starting things, but he never finishes. So now Ruth does most of the running things, and Harry just does enough to keep her quiet. 20 years, and they're still just scraping by. Jenny's father watched it all happen, the same as I did, and my father was a friend of his. That's why I promised him that I'd look out for Jenny while he was away. I'm here to uphold the law, but there's no law against some sorts of foolishness. If you're really going to go through with this play idea of yours, I can't stop you. But at least I want to be around to keep it from getting out of hand.
It won't be like it was with the Littles. I won't be like Harry.
Maybe, maybe not. But as of right now, I don't see much difference between the two of you. You're both just fooling yourselves while you spend other people's money. Sooner or later, your imaginary backer will want to be repaid. Only this time there's no farm to sell. Well, I've got the rest of my rounds to complete. You think about what I've said.
Okay, kid, it's time for your soliloquy.
What a fool I've been.
Is that the best you can do?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, yes it is.
Oh, well, it's supposed to be 1916, so I guess there were a lot of people walking around saying what a fool I've been, and probably a whole lot more who were getting ready to say it even a few years later on. You might as well go ahead.
What a fool I've been. Now Uncle is expecting me to put on a successful musical play, or else to go work for him holding a bag for heaven knows how long, and the only writer I know has never made any money on a play. And even if I tell Uncle to cancel the deal, what about Jenny? She's counting on me. She believes in me. She even believes that all this is really happening. I just can't break the heart of such a pretty little girl.
Not to mention Officer Petty. If anything happens to Jenny, you'll have an angry lady sheriff coming after you. Now we're going to put some magic lantern type transparencies up on a screen here while some of the actors read them to you. After that, we'll break into Act 2.
Dear Cousin James, I need your help. I'm trying to put on a musical play, and I've never written one before. I want to be the star, and there's a pretty little girl named Jenny to whom I've promised the part of the ingenue. Yours in desperation, your cousin Stephen. Dear Cousin Stephen, normally I'd advise you to abandon the whole project. I wrote a few plays, and one of them even got performed, but my father got involved, and I wound up losing money, so he and I don't speak anymore. However, it just so happens that I've been working on a play in the evenings after I get home from my job at the bank. It's actually based on my recollections of the little town where you live. I was there myself as a small child, but we moved into the city the year you were born. I've decided to call it The Changes Over 20 Years, and it's about a boy growing up from 1890 to 1910. I can easily change the years from 1896 to 1916 so that you will be the right age to play the lead. There's also a part for an ingenue. It's mighty refreshing to communicate with someone who knows the meaning of that word. But the little girl in question had better be really, really pretty. Please let me know if you're interested. Your Cousin James. Dearest Jenny, I'm going to get some help from my cousin James on our play. I'll tell you more about it later. I must close now because Officer Petty says she hasn't got all day. Your devoted Stephen. Dear Cousin James, your play sounds like the very thing. Ours is a quiet little town, so it's certain to be a quiet, well-behaved little play, and that's just what I need to keep out of trouble with the local sheriff. I'm sure that the musical numbers will brighten the entertainment enough to ensure success. Can you provide me with any of the details of the story? Yours with great interest, your cousin Stephen. Dear Cousin Stephen, I just reread your first letter. I apparently missed the part about this play being a musical. I could use your help in converting it. What part do you sing, and what instruments do you play? Also, it sounds like you intend to have the first performance in our tiny hometown. I know of only one place that might be suitable. Did they ever finish setting up the back room at the little inn? Your Cousin James. Dear Cousin James, things are just a little bit disappointing here. First, I have to admit I don't sing or play any instruments. I had looked at some sheet music in a store window, but someone just told me about notes. We might have to get some more help with the music part. Second, the back room at the little inn is not finished. I asked Mr. Little about it, and he said that he would take care of everything, but he could use some help. I'm going to ask around and see who I can find. Finally, I noticed that your last letter didn't include any story details. Is there a reason? Yours in nervousness, your Cousin Stephen. Dear Cousin Stephen, I was planning on opening with you and the ingenue looking back happily over your childhood. Then there would be a lavish opening musical number set in 1890, all about how lovely everything was. There would be horse-drawn carriages and farmers with mules bringing their goods to market. Then Sheriff Petty would come out twirling his big mustache and announcing the birth of a new baby, a boy. There would be another song about the baby. That would be you, but you wouldn't actually appear on stage yet. Then the little farm store would announce the opening of a new theater, and everyone would be excited. Another song about that. Then a few years would pass as the modern 1916 boy and girl reminisced fondly. She wouldn't say much about those years because she hadn't been born yet. Song about not being born. Then the little boy would go to school and learn to read and write. Then the school teacher would read his essay to the class, and there would be a song about how great it was. Then Sheriff Petty would come out and announce the birth of another baby, a girl. Then there would be a musical snowball fight. The snowballs wouldn't be musical. It would be a kind of ballet, but very tasteful. Then a few more years would pass as the modern 1916 boy and girl reminisced fondly. Then Sheriff Petty would come out, looking a little bit older and grayer, and announce the birth of a mule. Then the little theater would present a one-act play within a play. It would use the same play that I got performed at the county fair. We'll need to put more songs in there somewhere. Then a few years would pass as the modern 1916 boy and girl reminisced fondly about what a great success the play was.
And now we got to interrupt because we're running out of time. Well, that's radio for you.
And that concludes part 2 of our presentation of The Changes Over 20 Years. We hope you've enjoyed it. Be sure to tune in again for the next installment of The Changes Over 20 Years on Radio Free Filler.